I've always been good with numbers. Maybe that's why I ended up as a senior mechanic. When you're fixing cars, the details matter. 1 millimeter off, and the whole engine could fail. My wife Mary used to joke that I treated our bank account like a finely tuned machine. Every Sunday morning, I'd sit with my coffee, checking our statements line by line, making sure everything ran smoothly. For 32 years, that ritual never changed. We weren't rich. A mechanic and a part-time librarian rarely are. But we were comfortable. Our mortgage was nearly paid off, and we had a decent retirement fund growing. I knew every regular payment, the utilities, the insurance, the monthly subscriptions to Netflix and Amazon Prime, that Mary insisted we needed to stay current. Life was good, or at least I thought it was. Mary and I had our routines. She'd bring me lunch at the garage sometimes, and I'd surprise her with dinner out when the month had been kind to us. We weren't one of those couples who needed grand gestures or constant excitement. We had something better: stability, trust, and the kind of comfort that comes from spending half your life with someone. The guys at work would complain about their marriages, about the drama and the fights. I'd just smile and keep working. Mary and I didn't have those problems. Sure, maybe we weren't as passionate as we were in our 20s, but who is? We had built something real, something that would last. That Sunday morning started like any other. The autumn sun was streaming through our kitchen window, and the coffee maker was gurgling its familiar tune. Mary was still asleep upstairs. She always said Sundays were for sleeping in. I opened my banking app, ready for my weekly review. Everything looked normal at first: the grocery store runs, the gas station fill-ups, the regular bills. Then I saw it, a small charge, just $49.99. Most people wouldn't think twice about it, would probably scroll right past. But I'm not most people. And that number, it wasn't one of ours. Looking back now, I wonder if I hadn't been so detail-oriented, would I have noticed? Would I have just dismissed it as another subscription in our digital age? But that's the thing about life. Sometimes the smallest details can unravel the biggest lies. My attention to detail wasn't just about money or machines. I could tell when Mary changed her shampoo brand or when she got a slight trim at the salon. I noticed when she started wearing that new perfume last spring, something lighter and more floral than her usual choice. Some might call it obsessive, but I called it caring. When you love someone, you pay attention to the little things that make up their world. Even our arguments were orderly. Disagreements about which home repairs to prioritize or whether we should upgrade the car. Never anything serious, never any real threats to our foundation. At least that's what I thought our life was. A well-maintained machine, every part working in perfect harmony. I didn't know it then, but that $49.99 charge was about to show me just how wrong I was. I clicked on the charge, my coffee growing cold beside me. $49.99 to Elite Connections Monthly. The name itself set off warning bells. We didn't have any elite connections, monthly or otherwise. Mary and I were simple people with simple subscriptions: Netflix for her crime shows, Amazon Prime for free shipping, and Spotify because our daughter Sarah had insisted we needed to join the 21st century. My first thought was fraud. These days, scammers are getting cleverer, finding new ways to sneak charges onto people's accounts. I pulled up our previous statements, scanning back through the months. There it was again, the same charge, same amount, going back 3 months. How had I missed this? I felt a flash of anger at myself. 3 months of unauthorized charges, slipping right past my Sunday morning audits. I opened a new tab and typed Elite Connections Monthly into Google. The results made my stomach tighten. Elite Connections, where sophisticated singles meet. Dating site. The words sat there on my screen, as impossible as finding a Rolls-Royce part in my garage's inventory. Must be identity theft, I muttered, reaching for my now cold coffee. But something made me pause before calling the bank's fraud department. A memory tickled at the back of my mind. Mary's new perfume, the subtle changes in her schedule over the past few months. Tuesday book club meetings that used to end at 8:30 now stretched to 9:30 or later. I opened our shared password manager, another of our daughter's insistences about modern living. Mary's email password was right there. We'd always had an open policy about these things. No secrets, no locked doors between us. 32 years of marriage built on trust. My finger hovered over the password. In all our years together, I'd never actually logged into her email. Never needed to, never wanted to. The charge for Elite Connections Monthly sat accusingly on my banking app's screen. Sometimes being good with details means noticing things you wish you hadn't. Sometimes it means following a thread that might unravel everything you've built. I clicked on her email login. The email login page seemed to mock me with its simplicity. I typed in Mary's password, our anniversary date, followed by our first house number. My hands were steady, but my heart was pounding against my ribs like a misfiring engine. The inbox loaded. Everything looked normal at first. Book club notifications, Amazon shipping updates, daily newsletters she never read. But when I typed Elite Connections into the search bar, the screen filled with results. Welcome emails, password resets, message notifications. Welcome to Elite Connections, Linda. Linda. I read the name 3 times, as if repetition might somehow make it make sense. Mary had never gone by Linda, never mentioned knowing a Linda. But there it was, her email address with someone else's name. I'm a methodical man. When I diagnose a car problem, I follow the evidence. Check every connection. Test every possibility. So that's what I did now. I clicked through the emails systematically, each one a new piece of evidence I didn't want to find. Profile creation date, 3 months ago. The same time the charges started appearing. The same time Mary's book club meetings got longer. My coffee sat forgotten as I opened the profile link. The page asked for a password. I tried our anniversary date again. Nothing. Our house number. Nothing. Then I tried her birth month and year. Access granted. The profile loaded, and I felt the world shift beneath me. The photo was obviously Mary, though she wore sunglasses I'd never seen before. Married but seeking spark, read the status. 3 months of message history with 5 different men. I clicked the first conversation thread. Your photo is stunning, Linda. Those eyes could light up any room. Thank you. It's nice to feel appreciated again. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. Mary had been sleeping beside me then, or at least I thought she had been. I closed the laptop quietly, though I was alone in the house. 32 years of marriage, and I just discovered my wife had another name, another life, one she paid for with our shared account, leaving digital fingerprints for me to find. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd chosen Linda to hide her tracks, but she'd forgotten about the numbers. She'd forgotten who balanced our accounts every Sunday morning. When a car comes into my shop with major engine damage, I never tell the owner right away. First, I document everything, take photos, make notes, build a complete diagnosis before discussing options. It's professional, methodical, the right way to handle bad news. I found myself applying the same process to my crumbling marriage. I created a new email account using my work computer, making sure not to leave any traces on our home devices. Then I started documenting. Screenshots of Linda's profile, the payment history from our bank account, the messages, the timestamps. Each piece of evidence carefully saved and backed up to a secure cloud storage. My hands didn't shake. My breathing stayed steady. I approached this like any other complex repair job. The only difference was that instead of fixing something, I was preparing to dismantle it. Mary came home from her grocery shopping around noon. She had bags from the store, but her hair was freshly styled, not something you'd do for a grocery run. I watched her unpack organic vegetables and premium coffee while chatting about sale prices. Each lie rolled off her tongue as smoothly as oil leaking from a cracked gasket. "Did you enjoy your quiet morning with the bank statements?" she asked, putting away the coffee, the expensive brand she'd started buying 3 months ago. "Very enlightening," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Found some interesting subscriptions we should discuss." She paused for just a fraction of a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I notice everything. That microscopic hesitation told me all I needed to know. "Oh?" "Probably just some free trial I forgot to cancel," she said, her back to me as she arranged items in the fridge. "You know how these companies are." I did know how companies work. I also knew how guilty people act when they're cornered. I'd seen enough customers try to explain away check engine lights they'd ignored for months. "We'll talk about it later," I said, getting up from the kitchen table. "I've got some work to catch up on in the garage." In reality, I had planning to do. Mary wasn't the only one who could lead a double life. While she played Linda online, I would become someone else too, the man who would meticulously dismantle her carefully constructed lie, piece by piece. All machines have weak points. All systems can be broken down. It's just a matter of knowing where to apply the pressure. In my garage at home, I have a special tool chest. 3 drawers of precision instruments I've collected over 30 years. Each one perfectly maintained, organized, and ready for specific jobs. That Sunday evening, I started treating my investigation the same way, assembling the right tools for a very particular job. The first tool was information. I spent hours going through every message in Linda's profile. The conversations made my stomach turn, but I read them all, multiple times. Like memorizing a repair manual, I learned their patterns, the way she flirted, the excuses she used, the times she was most active, usually when I was working late shifts or when she claimed to be at book club. 5 men, all around her age, all married, all looking for what she called a deeper connection. The irony of that phrase would have made me laugh if it hadn't made me sick. Each conversation followed a similar pattern: casual chat, subtle flirtation, then arrangements to meet. I created a spreadsheet: dates, times, locations. Cross-referenced them with our joint calendar, her book club schedule, her library shifts. The patterns emerged like a diagnostic readout. Tuesday book club wasn't just running late. It hadn't existed for months. Those extra Saturday shifts at the library? They showed up in our calendar, but not in her pay stubs. The second tool was surveillance. I installed tracking software on our shared iPad, the one she thought I never learned to use properly. I set up alerts for specific keywords in her searches. Installed a keylogger on our home computer. Some might call it invasion of privacy. I called it quality control. The third tool was patience. At work, I kept my routine. Fixed cars, joked with customers, stayed late on Thursdays as usual. At home, I maintained our normal life, watched TV together, discussed daily news, slept beside her. I became an actor in what felt like a surreal play, watching myself go through the motions of a life that was already broken. But beneath this routine, I was building something. Every notification, every message, every secret meeting she planned, all of it fed into my growing database. I tracked her digital footprint like a mechanic tracking down an elusive engine knock. Each piece of evidence was a part I could use later. One night, while she slept beside me, I read her latest messages to someone called Denver Biker 58. They were planning to meet at a hotel next week. Expensive place downtown, the kind we'd never stay at on a mechanic's salary. She'd told me she had a library conference that day. The light from my phone cast a blue glow on her sleeping face. She looked peaceful, beautiful even. The same face I'd woken up to for 32 years. The same lips that now lied to me every day. I watched her sleep, and felt a strange detachment, like looking at a familiar car that's been damaged beyond repair. I turned off my phone and lay in the darkness, listening to her breathing. The old me would have confronted her right then, demanded answers, created a scene. But I wasn't that man anymore. She'd transformed me into something else, someone who could lie beside a liar and plan their own countermove. Tomorrow, I would start phase 2. Because while Mary was playing at being Linda, she'd forgotten something crucial. Mechanics don't just fix things. We also know exactly how to take them apart. The next phase of my plan started with money, not the $49.99 monthly subscription that had started all this. I was looking at bigger numbers now. Our joint accounts, retirement funds, property deeds. Mary had always left the finances to me, trusting my meticulous nature. Another irony to add to the growing pile. I visited our bank during my lunch break, speaking with a financial advisor about retirement planning. Instead, I learned about account separation, asset division, and how to document financial infidelity. The advisor's eyes showed recognition when I mentioned dating site charges. Apparently, I wasn't the first spouse to sit in that chair with similar evidence. Back at the garage, between oil changes and brake jobs, I made calls. A divorce attorney recommended by one of my longtime customers. A private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases. A digital security expert who could verify my electronic evidence was legally obtained. Each conversation was like adding a new tool to my workbench. The PI's fees were steep, but worth every penny. Within days, I had photos of Mary, or Linda as she called herself, meeting Denver biker 58 at various cafes and restaurants. The mysterious book club meetings were documented in high-resolution color, her arrival at a downtown hotel, her departure 2 hours later with slightly mussed hair and smeared lipstick. Most clients want to confront their spouses as soon as they see these, the PI told me, sliding the photos across his desk. You're unusually calm about this. I studied the images like I would study a damaged engine component. Confrontation without preparation is just noise, I replied. I prefer to have all my parts in order before I start a job. The photos joined my growing digital archive. Every piece of evidence was cataloged, dated, and backed up in triplicate. Mary had no idea that while she was building her fantasy life as Linda, I was building something too, an ironclad case that would dismantle our marriage on my terms. At home, the performance continued. I listened to her stories about the library, about her book club discussions. Each lie was a new entry in my database. Each kiss goodbye before her meetings was recorded, time-stamped, and cross-referenced with the PI's photos. One evening, as I watched her get ready for another book club meeting, she asked me why I was working so much lately. Just trying to build up our retirement fund, I said, watching her apply that new lipstick she'd bought. You never know when you might need extra security. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and left. I waited until I heard her car pull away before opening my laptop. The PI's latest report showed her destination for the evening, another hotel, another man, another lie to add to my collection. In the garage, I kept my special tools in a locked chest. Now my most important tools were digital, encrypted files, surveillance photos, financial records, everything backed up, organized, and ready for the moment I would begin the disassembly of our marriage. The mechanic in me knew that timing was crucial. Rush a repair job, and you risk making mistakes. The same principle applied here, so I watched, documented, and waited. Mary thought she was so careful with her secret life, never realizing she was living in a glass house of my construction. Every major repair job has a moment of truth, that point where you've done all the prep work and you're ready to start the actual fix. My moment came when I received a particular email from Linda's account. She was planning something special for Denver biker 58's birthday. A weekend getaway at the Mountain View Resort, the kind of place that costs more per night than I make in a week. I sat in my garage office, surrounded by the familiar smell of motor oil and metal, reading her detailed plans. She'd already booked it, not with our joint account this time, but with a credit card I didn't know existed. My PI's latest report confirmed she'd opened it 3 months ago, another piece of evidence for my growing collection. The hotel booking was for next weekend. She'd already told me about a library conference in Denver, a 3-day professional development event that she couldn't miss. The way she'd presented it over dinner, showing me the fake conference schedule she'd created, was almost admirable in its attention to detail. Almost. That night, I made my own preparations. First, I contacted my lawyer and had him prepare all the necessary documents. Then I called the hotel, not the Mountain View Resort, but the Grand Plaza downtown. I booked their finest restaurant for Saturday night, the same night Mary would supposedly be attending her conference's gala dinner. "Would you like to add any special requests?" the booking agent asked. "Yes," I said, thinking of all those luxury hotel charges I'd documented. "Money is no object. I want the best table you have." I spent the next few days finalizing every detail. The lawyer confirmed all my documentation was in order. The PI delivered his final report, complete with video footage that made me glad I was sitting down when I watched it. The digital security expert verified all my electronic evidence was properly preserved and legally obtained. At work, I told my boss I needed next weekend off, my first weekend request in 5 years. He didn't even hesitate to approve it. At home, I helped Mary pack for her conference, watching her slip that new lingerie into her suitcase when she thought I wasn't looking. "I'll miss you," she said, kissing me goodbye on Friday morning. 3 days is a long time. "Don't worry," I replied, hugging her with just the right amount of affection. "I have a feeling it'll be memorable." After she left, I opened my laptop one last time to review everything. Every photo, every message, every hotel charge, every lie, all cataloged and ready, like parts laid out on my workbench before a major repair job. But this wasn't going to be a repair. This was going to be a controlled demolition. I thought about the woman I'd married 32 years ago, the life we'd built, the trust I'd had in her. Now all I felt was a cold, mechanical certainty, the same feeling I get when I know exactly what's wrong with an engine and exactly how to fix it, or in this case, how to break it. The final piece of my plan arrived that afternoon, an envelope from my lawyer containing 2 sets of documents. The first was our complete financial history, including Mary's secret credit card and her dating site expenses. The second was divorce papers, already filled out and ready for signatures. I placed everything in my briefcase, the same one Mary had given me for our 30th anniversary. Tomorrow night, while she was celebrating her lover's birthday in the mountains, I would be setting up my own special evening. One last gift for Linda, courtesy of the man she thought was too predictable to ever catch her. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about causing pain. It's about precision. Timing, the perfect combination of pressure points that causes the whole system to dismantle itself. Saturday morning arrived with the same predictability as a well-maintained engine. I watched the sun rise from my garage, where I'd spent half the night reviewing my plan. Not from doubt. I never start a job unless I'm certain about every step. No, I was reviewing because this was the kind of precision work that deserves respect. Like rebuilding a vintage engine, every movement had to be perfect. I logged into the Elite Connections website one last time using Mary's Linda profile. Denver Biker 58 had sent a message late last night. "Can't wait to celebrate my birthday with you tomorrow, beautiful." She'd replied with a string of suggestive emojis and promises. I downloaded the conversation, added it to my evidence file, and logged out for the final time. The PI's morning update confirmed everything was proceeding as expected. Mary's car had been spotted entering the Mountain View Resort's parking lot. She'd checked in alone, but her friend was due to arrive within the hour. The PI attached photos of her carrying that blue weekend bag I'd helped her pack for her conference. I spent the morning at the garage working on a complex transmission repair. The familiar work helped steady my hands and focus my thoughts. Each turn of the wrench, each careful adjustment, reminded me of how I'd methodically pieced together the evidence of her betrayal. Now it was time to take things apart with the same precision. Around noon, I received another update. Mary and her companion were having lunch at the resort's restaurant. The PI included a photo. They were sitting by a window, her hand resting on his arm, both of them laughing at some private joke. I studied the image like a diagnostic readout, noting how relaxed she looked, how different from the woman who kissed me goodbye yesterday. I opened my special toolbox, not the one filled with wrenches and sockets, but the leather briefcase containing everything I'd gathered. Bank statements showing the dating site charges, hotel receipts, photos of meetings, the secret credit card statements, the divorce papers. Each piece of evidence was a tool, and tonight I would use them all. The Grand Plaza called to confirm my reservation for their finest table. The maitre d' assured me that everything would be arranged exactly as requested. I'd chosen this restaurant carefully. It was where Mary and I had celebrated our 30th anniversary. The symmetry felt appropriate. "Sir," he asked, "would you like us to arrange for champagne to be waiting at the table?" "No," I replied, thinking of the champagne Mary was probably enjoying right now with her birthday boy. "Just water." This isn't exactly a celebration. I spent the afternoon preparing myself with the same care I'd use before a major repair job. Press suit, the expensive one Mary had insisted I buy for special occasions. Polished shoes, clean-shaved face, every detail perfect, just like my documentation. At 6:30, I sent a text to Mary's phone. "Missing you. Hope the conference is going well. Love you." 3 minutes later, she replied, "Miss you too. Just finished another fascinating session on library science. Can't wait to tell you all about it." I saved the message. One final piece of evidence, one last turn of the wrench before everything came apart. Because while Mary was playing her role as Linda up in the mountains, I had a different performance planned. Tonight, I would show her that even predictable old mechanics can surprise you, if you push them far enough. The Grand Plaza's lobby was all marble and crystal, the kind of place that makes a mechanic feel out of place. But tonight, I moved through it with purpose, briefcase in hand. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. I'd been very specific in my instructions. "Your table is ready, sir," he said, leading me to a private corner with a view of the entire restaurant. "And the other arrangements?" I handed him a sealed envelope. "Just as we discussed. When you see her enter, wait 2 minutes, then bring this to her." Inside was a printout of her dating site profile, complete with her Linda photos and selected messages. I'd added a handwritten note. "Table 17. We need to talk about your conference." While I waited, I checked the PI's latest update. Mary and her companion had just finished their romantic birthday dinner at the resort. They were headed back to their room. Perfect timing. I ordered a whiskey, neat, like the expensive ones Mary's profile claimed Linda enjoyed. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, sitting in the same restaurant where we'd celebrated so many anniversaries, about to destroy what was left of our marriage. At 8:47 p.m., I sent another text. "Hope you're enjoying the conference dinner. Just wanted to say goodnight." Her reply came quickly. "Almost done here." Learning so much. Love you. At 9:15 p.m., I made the call. The PI had given me Denver Biker 58's real number. Amazing what money can buy these days. It rang 3 times before a man answered, slightly out of breath. "Is this Richard Thompson?" I kept my voice professional, like I was calling about a car repair. Yes, who's this? This is James from the Mountain View Resort security team. We have an emergency situation involving your wife. There was a pause. My wife? There must be some mistake. My wife's in Chicago on business. Sir, we have her checked in under her maiden name. She's apparently had a severe allergic reaction. Medical team's on the way, but we need you here as soon as possible. The panic in his voice was immediate. Oh, God, I'll be there right away. I ended the call and checked my watch. Given the resort's location and current traffic, Richard would arrive in roughly 40 minutes. Just enough time for his hasty departure to thoroughly disrupt their romantic evening. At 9:20 p.m., I sent one final text to Mary. By the way, how's Linda enjoying her weekend? 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. I imagined her face as the carefully constructed lies began to crumble, as she realized what the sudden departure of her companion meant. At 9:23 p.m., my phone rang. Mary's number. I let it go to voicemail. At 9:24 p.m., another call. Ignored. At 9:25 p.m., a text. George, I can explain everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I took another sip of whiskey and watched the restaurant's entrance. She'd come here. I knew she would. The Grand Plaza was only 30 minutes from the resort, and she'd want to handle this face-to-face. Try to damage control. Try to explain. Like when a customer tries to explain why they ignored that check engine light for 6 months. I arranged the contents of my briefcase on the table. Bank statements, photos, credit card bills, divorce papers. Each piece laid out with the same precision I use when displaying damaged parts to a customer. Sometimes people need to see the evidence before they'll accept how badly they've broken things. The minutes ticked by like the steady rhythm of an engine at idle. More texts arrived, each one more desperate than the last. I read them with the detached interest of a mechanic reviewing a vehicle's error codes. 9:35 p.m. Please answer your phone. 9:37 p.m. This isn't what you think. 9:40 p.m. George, please. We need to talk about this. 9:42 p.m. I'm coming to you. Don't do anything until we talk. I arranged and rearranged the evidence on the table, positioning each piece for maximum impact. The dating site profile first, her digital mask of Linda would be the opening shot. Then the financial records showing the pattern of deception, the hotel receipts, the surveillance photos, and finally, the divorce papers, waiting like a final diagnostic report. The maitre d' approached my table. Sir, your wife just called the restaurant. She's asking if you're here. And your response? As instructed, sir. We confirmed your reservation. I nodded and checked my watch. Given the resort's distance and her driving habits, another pattern I'd learned to recognize over 32 years, she'd arrive within 15 minutes. Just enough time for one more move. I took out my phone and composed a message to Denver Biker 58's wife. Her real contact information had been in the PI's report. I attached selected screenshots of her husband's conversations with Linda, along with photos from their various meetings. The message was simple. Your husband isn't in Chicago. Mountain View Resort, room 418. You might want to arrive before checkout time tomorrow. Send. Sometimes, when you're dismantling a complicated system, you need to remove all the supporting parts before tackling the main component. Mary's carefully constructed fantasy life was about to collapse from all sides. The restaurant had grown busier, the ambient noise of dinner conversations and clinking glasses creating a fitting backdrop for what was about to unfold. I watched couples at other tables, laughing, talking, sharing wine. How many of them were living honest lives? How many had secret profiles, hidden credit cards, Elaborate lies. My phone buzzed again. A text from the PI. Subject left resort at high speed. ETA to your location approximately 10 minutes. I took another sip of whiskey, appreciating the burn. In my years as a mechanic, I'd learned that there's an art to timing. Too quick and you risk making mistakes. Too slow and things fall apart on their own. The key is finding that perfect moment when everything is aligned for the job at hand. The maitre d' appeared again, a subtle signal. Sir, your wife has just entered the building. I adjusted the papers one final time, positioning them under the soft glow of the table's lamp. 32 years of marriage were about to end under the same crystal chandeliers where we'd celebrated our 30th anniversary. The symmetry felt right, like the satisfying click of a part fitting perfectly into place. I heard her heels on the marble floor before I saw her. The sound was different from her usual pace, faster, more desperate, like the racing engine of a car being pushed beyond its limits. It was time. Every piece was in position, every escape route blocked, every lie documented and ready to be exposed. I straightened my tie and smiled. Time to show Mary and Linda exactly what happens when you underestimate a man who spends his life paying attention to details. She appeared at my table like a check engine light coming on, sudden, urgent, demanding attention. Her face was flushed, hair slightly disheveled from the hasty drive. She was still wearing the dress I'd seen in the PI's restaurant photos, though now it looked somehow less elegant, more desperate. George. My name came out like a misfiring cylinder. George, please, whatever you think is happening. I raised my hand, the same gesture I use to quiet panicking customers when I'm about to explain serious engine damage. Sit down, Linda. Or do you prefer Mary? I'm honestly not sure anymore. She sank into the chair across from me, her eyes fixed on the array of documents I'd laid out. I watched her take in each piece of evidence, her expression shifting like a transmission, struggling to find the right gear. How did you... She started, then stopped, her gaze landing on the dating site profile printout. $49.99, I said, keeping my voice as level as when I'm quoting repair costs. That's where you made your first mistake. Did you really think I wouldn't notice a recurring charge on our account? Me, the man who's balanced our books every Sunday for 32 years? George, I can explain everything. Her hands were trembling now, reaching for excuses like someone grabbing at falling tools. It's not what you think. I was just... Just what? I picked up her profile printout. Just seeking a spark? Just meeting strange men in hotels? Just living a double life while I helped you pack for fake conferences? Each question was precisely timed, like the steady turns of a wrench tightening a bolt. She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled back, lifting the next piece of evidence instead, the credit card statements. 5 different hotels in 3 months, always on Tuesdays or Saturdays, always when I was working late shifts or you were supposedly at book club. I never meant to get caught, I finished for her. That's obvious. You were careful, created fake schedules, used a different name. But you forgot something crucial, Mary. I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. You forgot that I fix things for a living, and to fix things, you have to notice details. Tears were forming in her eyes now. Real ones, not like the fake concern she'd shown when I'd mentioned the strange bank charge. George, please, 32 years of marriage. You can't just throw that away? I didn't throw anything away, I replied, my voice as cool as diagnostic equipment. You did that, one hotel room at a time, one lie at a time, one $49.99 monthly payment at a time. A waiter approached, then quickly retreated, sensing the atmosphere at our table. Around us, Other diners continued their meals, unaware they were witnessing the systematic dismantling of a 3-decade marriage. "Your friend Richard should be reaching the resort about now," I said, checking my watch. "Interesting man, successful business owner, loving husband. At least, that's what his wife thinks. The one who believes he's in Chicago right now." Mary's face went pale. "What did you do?" I smiled, the same smile I give customers when they realize they can't talk their way out of a major repair. "I did what mechanics do best, Mary. I found all the broken parts, documented the damage, and now—" I slid the divorce papers across the table. "I'm presenting the final report." Mary stared at the divorce papers like they were a foreign object that had suddenly appeared in her carefully ordered world. Her fingers traced the edges, but didn't pick them up. I recognized that hesitation. I'd seen it in customers facing repair bills they knew they couldn't talk their way out of. "You don't understand," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was lonely. You were always at work, always focused on your cars, your numbers, your routines." "Really?" I laid out the calendar I'd compiled. Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., I was at the garage doing late shifts. Every Saturday when you had library overtime, I was home alone. I kept track, Mary. It's what I do. And you know what I discovered? I pulled out another document. The garage has been closed on Tuesdays since March, but you never noticed, did you? Too busy with your own schedule? Her face crumpled slightly. The perfect mask of Linda, the sophisticated seductress, was beginning to crack, revealing the desperate woman beneath. I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just curiosity, just wanting to feel something different. "Different," I repeated, taking out my phone. "Like this kind of different?" I played one of the voice recordings the PI had captured, her laughter, bright and genuine, at something Richard had said. A laugh I hadn't heard in years. Or maybe this kind? Another recording, her voice sultry and playful, speaking to another man entirely. "Stop it," she whispered, her hands clenching into fists on the table. "Why? Isn't this what you wanted? To be heard? To be seen?" Each word was precisely measured, like torque on a critical bolt. "Well, you've been seen, Mary, by the PI who documented every meeting, by the hotel staff who recognized your fake name, by Richard's wife, who should be getting some very interesting photos right about now." Her head snapped up. "You didn't?" "I did, and not just Richard's wife. I have a whole list here." I tapped another document. 5 men, 5 families, 5 wives who thought their husbands were faithful. Should I keep going? Should I show you the rest of what I found when I started looking closely at your careful little construction? The tears were flowing freely now, mascara creating dark rivers down her cheeks. "George, please, we can fix this. We can get counseling, work through this." "Fix it?" I almost laughed. "Mary, I fix things for a living. I know exactly what can and can't be repaired." "This?" I gestured at the evidence spread between us. "This is totaled. Complete write-off." Her phone buzzed. Probably Richard, discovering his own carefully constructed lies falling apart at the resort. She didn't even reach for it. "You know what the irony is?" I continued, my voice steady. "You thought I was predictable, boring, too focused on details. But those details, they're what caught you. Every receipt, every charge, every little breadcrumb you left behind because you thought I was too simple to follow the trail." "I loved you," she whispered. "I still love you." "No," I said, and for the first time I let a hint of emotion crack through my mechanical facade. "You loved the stability, the comfort, the man who would never question your book club meetings or your late-night texts. The man who kept the finances running smoothly so you could play at being Linda without worrying about real-world consequences. I reached into my briefcase one final time, pulling out a small notebook, the one she'd given me for our 30th anniversary. I kept track of everything in here, every lie, every secret phone call, every time you kissed me goodbye on your way to meet another man. 32 years of marriage, reduced to a ledger of betrayals. Around us, the restaurant continued its elegant evening service. Waiters glided past with expensive wines and carefully plated dishes. Couples shared intimate conversations over candlelight. The perfect setting for the final act of our marriage. "Your things will be packed when you get home," I said, gathering the evidence back into my briefcase. "I've arranged for a moving company, very efficient, very detailed, just like everything else in my predictable life." Mary reached for the divorce papers with trembling hands, finally forced to face the reality I'd constructed around her. Her phone kept buzzing, a steady rhythm of consequences arriving one message at a time. "The papers are already filed," I said, watching her scan the documents. My lawyer was very thorough. Like me, he appreciates attention to detail. Every hotel receipt, every secret credit card statement, every falsified library shift, it's all there, very clean, very precise. "You planned all this," she said, her voice hollow. "Sitting across from me at breakfast, helping me pack, kissing me goodbye. You were planning this whole time." "Yes." I took another sip of whiskey. "Just like you planned every Tuesday meeting, every Saturday rendezvous, every carefully crafted lie. The difference is, I'm better at following through." Her phone lit up again, this time with a name I recognized from my research. Another husband's wife, no doubt discovering her own world unraveling. Mary stared at the screen, then back at me. "How many did you tell?" "All of them," I replied, as matter-of-factly as when I explain multiple system failures to a customer. "Every spouse, every family, your entire house of cards, Mary. I didn't just pull one piece, I systematically removed the entire foundation." She slumped in her chair, the weight of complete destruction finally settling on her shoulders. "I never meant... It wasn't supposed to end this way?" I finished for her. "How was it supposed to end, Mary? What was the end game for Linda? Keep juggling lovers until someone else's suspicious spouse caught on? Keep draining our accounts for hotel rooms and dating site subscriptions?" The maitre d' approached with professional concern. I waved him away. This operation wasn't quite complete. "You know what the worst part is?" I continued, my voice still measured, still controlled. "Not the lies, not even the betrayals. It's that you thought I was too simple to figure it out, too predictable, too absorbed in my routines to see what was happening right in front of me. That's not... The thing about mechanics," I cut her off, "is that we understand systems, how they work, how they fail, and most importantly..." I stood up, placing my napkin precisely on the table. "How to completely dismantle them when they're beyond repair." I lifted my briefcase, the final tool in this extensive operation. "The movers will be there until 6 tomorrow. Your things will be carefully packed and labeled, organized, the way you always said you liked about me." Mary looked up at me, mascara-stained tears tracking down her face. The sophisticated Linda was gone completely now, leaving only the ruins of the woman I'd married 32 years ago. "George, please." "Goodbye, Mary," I said, straightening my tie. "Or Linda, whoever you are now." I walked away from the table with the same steady precision I'd used to plan this entire evening. Behind me, I could hear her phone buzzing again, the symphony of consequences I'd orchestrated reaching its crescendo. Sometimes the most complete repairs require a total system replacement. And sometimes the most effective revenge isn't about causing pain, it's about methodically, precisely, professionally removing every single piece that once held something together. It's been 6 months since that night at the Grand Plaza. 6 months of quiet Sunday mornings without bank statements to review, without lies to catalog, without a double life to unknowingly finance. The divorce was as clean and efficient as any repair job I've ever done. When you have that kind of evidence, things tend to move quickly. The aftermath spread through our social circle like an oil leak spreading across a garage floor. Mary's careful construction didn't just collapse, it shattered. 4 marriages ended that weekend. 1 survived, barely, through extensive counseling. The ripples affected everything. The library board asked for her resignation, the book club disbanded, and her carefully cultivated social status evaporated like fuel from a cracked line. I kept the house. My lawyer said it was more than fair given the circumstances, but that wasn't why I wanted it. I wanted it because I know how to fix things, and this house needed work. I spent weekends replacing the old windows she'd always complained about, upgrading the kitchen she'd said was too outdated, repainting walls that had witnessed 32 years of what I now knew were gradually building lies. The garage became my sanctuary, as it had always been. But now, instead of being a retreat from a happy home, it was a workshop for rebuilding my life. I reorganized my tools, installed better lighting, and finally built that hydraulic lift I'd been planning for years. Every improvement was a step away from the past, a recalibration of my own systems. Word got around about what happened. It always does in small towns. But not the way Mary might have feared. People didn't gossip about her affairs or mock my methodical revenge. Instead, they started bringing me their own suspicions, their own worried observations. The owner of the diner across from my garage asked me to look at some strange charges on his business account. A regular customer wanted help understanding his wife's odd phone patterns. I helped where I could, sharing what I'd learned about digital footprints and financial traces. Not to destroy lives, but to uncover truth. Sometimes that's all people really need, the clarity to make their own decisions. Sarah, our daughter, took it harder than I expected, not because of the divorce, she understood that part all too well, but because of the methodical way I'd handled it. "It's scary, Dad," she told me over coffee one morning, "how you just took everything apart." "That's what mechanics do, sweetheart," I replied. "We diagnose, we document, we repair what we can, and replace what we can't." She was quiet for a moment before asking, "Are you happy now?" The question made me pause, tool in hand, like when you're listening carefully to an engine for that one specific sound. Was I happy? The anger had faded, the vindication had settled, and what remained was peace. The kind of peace you get when you finally fix a problem that's been causing trouble for far too long. I still check my bank statements every Sunday morning. Old habits die hard, and good maintenance practices never go out of style. But now I do it from my reorganized home office with a better coffee maker and a clearer understanding of what really matters in life's ledger. Mary, or Linda, or whoever she decided to be, moved to Denver. I heard she's working at a different library starting over. Good for her. Sometimes a total system replacement is the only way forward. As for me? Last week, Janet, the waitress from the diner who's been bringing me coffee for years, asked me to take a look at her car. The repair was simple, but the conversation over coffee afterward was anything but. We talked for hours about real things, honest things. She knows my story, knows how I handle problems, and she's still here, sitting across from me with clear eyes and genuine words. That's the thing about being a mechanic. You learn that every broken system teaches you something. You learn to spot problems earlier, to fix things before they fall apart, to understand that sometimes the most important maintenance isn't about the machinery at all. I still love details, still track everything, still approach life with the same methodical precision that helped me uncover Mary's deception. But now I use these skills to build something new, something honest. Because while I may be predictable, may be detail-oriented, may be everything Mary found too simple for her exciting double life, I know one thing for certain. The best repairs don't just fix what's broken. They make the whole system run better than before.